Welcome to the deep dive. You've shared some really interesting material with us, and today our aim is to unpack it for you. We want to pull out the key insights and maybe understand a perspective that might feel quite new.
That's right. Today we're digging into some excerpts from a YouTube video. It's by you, and it's called Yimoria Efi, Nuoria Efi.
Which translates roughly to analysis of one's own reaction to the horse worldview.
Exactly.
So our mission here in this deep dive is really to get a handle on a method suggested in this video. It's about, well, how you examine your own reactions, your gut feelings, when you come across a totally new way of looking at the world.
And we're specifically looking at this through the lens of the Orius concept and this Mao returns playlist that's associated with it.
Yeah, the basic idea seems to be learning by watching ourselves react. It's quite meta, actually.
It is. And the core task the video suggests is this. Analyze your personal reactions. Do you agree? Disagree strongly? Does it just make you feel a bit uneasy or maybe mildly doubtful?
As you listen to the content in that Mao Returns playlist, right?
Yeah.
The one laying out this Oreo worldview.
Precisely. It's all about tuning into those internal responses.
Okay, so let's unpack the why behind this. The video seems to give a few reasons for doing this kind of self-examination. First up is...
Detoxification, yeah.
Yeah.
From the consequences of something the video calls satiawater.
Right, vulgar Satanism. Now, is that like a specific movement, or is it more of a general term for a negative mindset?
From the context, it seems more like a general term. Think of it as describing a set of, well, negative or maybe destructive attitudes the Oreo or worldview is trying to counteract, the source of the toxicity, so to speak.
Got it. So detoxify from those negative effects. What's next in the process?
Well, after detoxification, the video talks about okuyoi, cleansing.
Cleansing. Okay.
And the potential end goal, it suggests, could be forming a new type of internal dialogue. They call it like a new internal script, a new way of thinking things through.
That seems to be the idea, yeah. A new framework for your internal processing.
Okay, now this is where it gets, I think, really fascinating. The video addresses something we all do, right? When we disagree with something, our first instinct is usually, nope, I'm right, that's wrong.
Absolutely. And that tendency to immediately reject something is key here.
So what does the video suggest we do about that? Just ignore our disagreement?
Not exactly ignore it, but temporarily suspend that certainty. It suggests, considering just for a moment, that maybe the worldview being presented isn't entirely wrong.
That's a big ask sometimes.
It is, but the video offers a reason. It points out the author relies on established sources. Horcruxes, standing on the shoulders of giants.
And uses Elia's original sources. Right, so the ideas aren't just plucked out of thin air. They supposedly have some grounding.
Okay, that makes sense. Build on existing knowledge. But, and this feels important, the author also says they could be wrong.
Yes, exactly. The video makes it clear the author admits the possibility of personal error, of misinterpretation. There are no guarantees given, no promises of absolute truth, or even that things will definitely turn out positively.
That's quite upfront, isn't it? Admitting you might be wrong. How does that play, do you think? Does it make it more trustworthy or less certain?
That's a great question. I think it could cut both ways. On one hand, it kind of lowers the defenses, maybe, makes it feel less like dogma being pushed on you.
Yeah, encourages you to think critically yourself rather than just accept or reject wholesale.
Exactly. It creates space for a more, let's say, open engagement. You're invited to evaluate, not just believe.
Okay, so we understand the rationale. Detoxification, cleansing, maybe a new internal dialogue. Let's get practical. How does the video suggest we actually do this self-analysis while listening? What's the method?
Right, the assignment, as it were. The video suggests really paying attention to the moments in the playlist that provoke a strong negative reaction. The phrase used is "esho boy."
Bright rejection, like a really visceral no.
Yeah, or even just, oh no, I don't agree with that at all. It's about pinpointing those moments of strong internal pushback.
But not just the big reactions.
No, it also mentions noting the less intense stuff, like thoughts of unlikely, or maybe hey show.
He exaggerated something there, or he went a bit too far there.
Right, those moments of doubt or mild disagreement. The idea is to tune into all these signals, even the quieter ones.
And what do we do once we notice them?
The practical tip is simply to make a note. Could be just a mental bookmark or, jotting it down on your computer, maybe a note on your phone.
So take the internal feeling and make it external somehow.
Exactly. So you can look at it a bit more objectively later, perhaps.
Okay, let's connect this to the bigger picture within this on OSA system, this self-analysis. It seems like it's framed as a step towards liberation.
That seems to be the connection, yes. Liberation and potentially enlightenment.
Wow, okay, those are big concepts. Liberation and enlightenment just from noting down reactions to a playlist. How does that work in this system?
Well, as far as we can piece it together, the idea seems to be that identifying and processing these negative reactions to this specific worldview helps you break free from those toxic influences we mentioned earlier, the Amori bottom.
So clearing out the negativity first.
Right, that's the liberation part. And then potentially that cleared space allows for personal growth or enlightenment, which they seem to link to your inherent potential. There are other videos mentioned like
The potential of man and dementors. Interesting title.
Indeed. So the sequence seems to be identify reactions, process them to detox and cleanse, liberation, which then opens the door to potential enlightenment based on who you fundamentally are.
This whole idea of reacting to information reminds me of that anecdote the video uses about a colleague and a book.
Oh yeah, the causing a book diagnosis of karma.
Right. The colleague apparently couldn't even bring themselves to read it, even though it might have had useful stuff inside. That really resonates.
It does, doesn't it? It perfectly illustrates this idea of resistance to new information.
Sometimes your brain just hits a wall with certain things.
Exactly. The video uses this to suggest that some information, no matter its potential value, might just bounce off someone depending on their current mindset, their existing beliefs.
Which connects back to the Mao Returns playlist. Maybe some people just won't be able to engage with it fully because their internal filters are like set differently at that moment.
Precisely. It suggests our readiness, or lack thereof, plays a huge role in whether we can even process certain ideas, let alone analyze our reaction to them.
Okay, and just practically speaking, the video mentions the playlist is, what, about 20 videos long? That sounds like a lot to analyze.
It does. But the advice seems to be not necessarily to go through every second of every video with a fine-tooth comb.
Ah, okay. So what's the focus?
The focus should be on the videos or the parts of videos that really trigger those negative reactions we talked about. The dejection or disapproval.
Or the scold doubts?
Exactly. Zero in on the fiction points.
Mm-hmm.
That seems much more manageable, doesn't it? Less like getting bogged down in every detail.
Definitely. It's about finding where your current view clashes most strongly with what's being presented.
That seems to be the core of the practical advice.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. This deep dive into the video really highlights a specific method for self-reflection, doesn't it?
It does. When faced with a new, maybe challenging worldview, the technique is to turn inward and observe your own responses.
Your agreements, your disagreements, strong feelings, subtle doubts, all of it.
And the idea is that by doing this, by paying attention to these internal reactions, you might gain some valuable insights. Insights into your own beliefs, maybe, and how you typically process new or unfamiliar information.
It really puts the focus on self-awareness as a tool for engaging with new perspectives.
Which leads us to a final thought. Really, for you, the listener, considering this idea that our perspective shapes how we receive information. What are your initial reactions right now to these concepts we've discussed?
Yeah, this method of self-analysis, the idea of confronting challenging worldviews by looking at your own resistance. Does any of that spark immediate agreement or disagreement or maybe just doubt in you?
And thinking about that reaction, what might it tell you about your own current understanding or your own beliefs? It's something to consider, perhaps, if you ever decide to explore this kind of material yourself.